Greetings, my name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Welcome and thank you. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, the Core New Core, and anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor. 6 things today on my list of subjects to address, and PC Pilates is the first one. What would you consider to be politically correct Pilates? That's an interesting question, right? Because what are politics about? Well, one word that comes to mind for me is power, and one way of establishing power or having power is control, right? So that's right where that grabs my interest as a Pilates instructor. And Pilates as a word is the mother of 10,000 things. Two small comments about politically correct. Is a way of maintaining a status quo or pressing an agenda to change whatever the status quo is into another perception. Politically correct, I think, would naturally mean that within the realm of politics and therefore power and control and influence and all of the things that draws humanity into the court of that arena are no different insofar as a microcosm in the Pilates court, and has all of its inherent characteristics that as an instructor you have to survive in. And then a specific comment about someone claiming to have this number of years of experience. A long time ago, I had someone point out to me that maybe is it 1 year of experience repeated that number of years, or is it that number of years where what you presume is that your depth and capacity to do what you do has grown. And that's where, I think it's a Tao thing, maybe it's a Zen thing, where enlightenment can take 3 years, 30 years, or 3 seconds. The Pilates Epiphany. I should make a title about that. So, number 2. Pilates is exercises in order. Now, that's what you're doing, right? The way you're doing it is how? Uniformly engaged. But the what you're doing, Pilates, see, it's amazing how often I use these props now. This is my long-time dictionary, and this is the year 2000 publication of my book, The Elements of Pilates and the Michael Miller View. And that view is one of language and grammar and ideal and experience. And part of that point of view is that Pilates isn't just the exercises, and that all you need to know and knowing Pilates is about the exercises, that makes it convenient to extract them and bundle them and reorder them any way you wish, to make it more about how you package them than the essence of what is there that you choose to ignore. For me, from me to you, to survive as a Pilates instructor, I hope you hear, if you don't already know, that part of that essence of Pilates is the order that the exercises are in, what they are and the order that they're in, right? And when you take them apart and use them out of context, it's the context that makes it what it is, more than just the individual elements. Let me go on. Pilates, to end with, number 2 is, Pilates is exercises in order. And as MMP point of view, that looks at it as you just don't take exercises and use them like tools, when you could participate in their intention by doing them in sequence, in flow. So let me go on. There's too much to cover today. Number 3 is springs. Springs. God. I've almost quit watching altogether the feed on Pilates stories that come off the internet, because it's so disheartening to see such interpretations or points of view of Pilates that are so divergent from mine. Which, instead of saying, oh, no, or objecting to any of that, because it's all just points of view of the mother of the 10,000 views, this word called Pilates. Springs. All right, so the point I want to make is that springs are in Pilates equipment are primarily to support load. And right in there along with that is to make alignment perceptible. And misconstrued interpretations from the MMP point of view is to consider springs as resistance. Okay? So as I'm thinking about this title and talking to you about it, it's all sensational, right? It's about sensation and telling the difference in what you're sensing. And so one way I would make the point sensationally about springs supporting load more than providing resistance would be to lay supine on a Cadillac or at the end of a springboard, where your body is static in space, but you can pull leg springs out and put loops around your arches and support your legs from springs that go to a place behind you, right? And I'm jumping right into the experiential without any of the intellectual coming in front of it. But that's good, because if you can communicate the answer without having to explain it, why take it into thought, let alone words? Meaning by observing the sensation that you have with your legs out at 45, held up by the springs, and then I typically make contact points at the metatarsals, right between the first two knuckles, because that's where the line comes out of the body, right? Just like the first two knuckles in the hand when the wrist is aligned, right? But even before that, that's all too fancy. It's all too fancy. It's just like, okay, now I take away the springs, and I'm holding with my body. So my body is now the spring because I'm holding their legs up in that place with my hand. But now I say, now, what's the difference when you don't have springs and I let go? And of course, you would do that only to someone that you felt could actually hold the weight of their legs without them being introduced to that load so abruptly. Okay? So that takes it off in the conversation off into progressive, and not only in pattern, but in load bearing, right? So, and so the thinking part of that is, why does that matter? Or if you're wanting an intellectual explanation of how this plays into Pilates and the use of springs within Pilates. Now, we have to then paraphrase that or characterize that as, here's how springs fits into MMP. And from the MMP point of view, contrology develops the body uniformly, and so whole body is important. There are views out there, I think, that have no notion of or no introduction to the notion of Pilates being whole body in its means of effort, in its manner of effort, not the means. So springs. Another example of springs on the reformer doing side splits. You've got, say, 2 springs on, medium probably, and someone's out there and they're controlling their side springs and they want it harder. They want more. And what they think is more springs, is springs are resistance. And the point is to develop under increasing degrees of resistance. And you can give that feeling if you want, but then you can say, do you really want to feel what the nature of Pilates is? And you take off the spring that you give him and give him normal again, I would. But then you take another spring off or go to a lighter spring and you're positioned so that you control a range of motion. Part of that is what you do as a Pilates instructor, and the way you protect your student is anticipating the range of motion that may end up being beyond their control that you can restrict before it is damaging, before you get hurt or feel strain or anything beyond having lost the control without having the consequence of losing that control play out. There you go, play out. So, springs. Springs supply support to facilitate what the body can't do on its own. It's the muscles, it's the tension that comes from the spring that acts as tension outside of your body from the lack of muscular tension inside your body to achieve the effort you're after, which is uniform engagement. So, really important from this point of view is uniform engagement. And the springs supply support to help the body find itself uniformly. And to the extent that it does release, because it's most often a matter of what's held rather than what's not developed, but in either way, it's the accumulation to the ability to make the dynamic tension in the body that is a whole-bodied effort. And then springs as a sense of alignment, working through your wrists and ankles, so pedal pull and low chair, anchor up everything you can, but make the alignment sensational through our most versatile joints, don't you think? Wrists and ankles. And one of the reasons then why alignment between those, through those joints is so open to the perception of what is or isn't alignment. So if you're into using the word resistance, include the word assistance and recognize that really it's all about the assistance that springs provide, because the direction is toward tension internal, not to stack on higher degrees of external, but the point being to remove external tension for the body to absorb more of it internally. For MMP, that's Pilates. And you can, and some comment about to miss the point altogether, but I'm not sure what that referred to. And the big point was then you can feel this, right, through the examples I just mentioned, as well as any others you come up with. See, we're in physics. We're biological creatures in a world of physics, trying to survive. And within that world of physics, within reality, alignment is real, and rotation is real. Parallel is real. Torsion is real. And so, number 4, why did I get number 4? Oh. Number 4, the title is Going Beyond Principles and the very same projection of explanation of Pilates as having spring-based resistance equipment. Maybe it's on purpose, rather than, I mean, maybe it's being doled out to the population, to the public, in a way that makes sense to them, because they're used to resistance work. But to frame it as resistance work is to totally mischaracterize it from the MMP point of view. Within that same projection of what it's all about are principles, and to their credit, they cited the principles that came out of Freeman and Eison's book, which really has been a catch-22 as to the tsunami of Pilates passion has largely been because of the unhindered interpretation of Pilates as a collection of principles that are personally interpreted and arbitrarily mixed with others. Principles. And what I want you to know about MMP is that principles are nice, but the theory of the ideal goes beyond the principles and points more to what can be extracted out of the ideal, or what you see coming out of the ideal and its pursuit. You get the principles. So Just recognize the world in which you live and the naturalness of the human expression, human nature. And it resonates within the Pilates culture because it can't help but not. Recognize that politically correct is politically correct according to someone pointing out the distinction, right? Seeking distinction. And in that regard, in some way, judging in the sense of making the distinction and asserting what is or isn't politically correct. Where am I going with this? Oh. Politically, if all you see is your income stream or credibility tied to a whimsical interpretation of principles set out by two guys that published 18 years after Joe died, instead of looking at Joe's book and at least taking him at his word. So recognize that in MMP, the point of view is an ideal point of view, and that out of that ideal, you can see the principles that everyone wants to limit the perception of Pilates to, because it's politically correct, and because we're talking about control. And so whomever and however they being those with their vested interests participating in the fricassee of Pilates, a vested interests fricassee. Recognize that one vested interest is the MMP point of view, and that's an ideal one. So, all right, so I rarely go to my P.O. box, but I was happy to see the arrival of this catalog. This is a catalog of Pilates equipment, a vast catalog of Pilates equipment and associated apparatus, to the point where in making my notes, I'm from a day and age where the Sears catalog meant something. It was like the de facto representation of what was available and a price at which it could be purchased at. And just in regards to the information in the catalog, it's totally precious, and I encourage you to write away for your own copy. Okay? Okay. So that's just based on the information that's in there. Okay, the way it's arranged is the best ever it's done. But what's really new about the 2019 copy of the Balanced Body catalog is that somebody, either behind the camera or actually choosing which pictures, has a much better eye for alignment through the neck. So I'm not making it back. I'm just stating that I wouldn't be talking about this catalog if it wasn't undeniably better. I'm not saying perfect, but undeniably better at showing the head and the neck in what I would consider good Pilates form, right? And so, see, the body. Movement never lies. That's Martha Graham. So, the catalog. My kudos to whomever is taking, I mean, it's a digital age, so you have to be looking at it as you take it. The more clearly you understand core intention, the better that will be. But even if it's just, I don't know why it is what it is, but it's better. And if you compare the last catalog to this one, it's apparent. What else do I want to say about it? All right, and here's something that's, do you see how they don't show the metatarsals, right? How does that work? And why does that pass? And, well, of course, also, you don't see the other leg either, right? If a person has engagement at their metatarsals in the picture, to me, that would mean they're aware of endpoints of tension in their body. If they're pointed in their foot to the point where it's outward, see, it's a trade-off. Yes, you can have a pointed foot with pointed toes as long as there's endpoint of tension at the metatarsals. You don't have to splay your toes to be in the engagement at the metatarsals. But the whole point of Pilates is the engagement of the endpoints. Why? To distribute the load for uniform usage. So the catalog, just for the information, okay, and okay. And there's another comment, and I don't mean it as snide in a way, but it's like to have this much equipment available now compared to the 20 years experience that someone's claiming to represent Pilates as Pilates equipment as spring-based resistance shows little to no evolution or accumulation or deepening of a perspective of, this is in MMP's point of view, in my point of view, of the ideal in which it exists. Politically correct is status quo correct. Because all of the prestige and the income are well nurtured and well tended to. Yours, mine, and everyone's. I got an email that said, "'Tis the season to celebrate. Here's our most popular package. Press this button to pay for it." And that's at an individual level. Send money now to get what you want. Especially if it's a custom design package that you know what they want. All right, I gotta go. Number 6 is Pilates is a whole body workout. As a quote, Pilates is a whole body workout. Do you agree with that? And I have no idea what view of Pilates you're looking at or through, if that doesn't sound familiar. The point is, that's easier said than done. That's the second half of the title, not in quotes. Pilates is a whole body workout. That's an quotable quote from, I would hope, anybody you ever learned from. And yet, out of quotes, my statement about that is that it's much easier to say that than to do it. And if nothing else rings in or sets true with you, I hope you attach to this notion that it's got to be whole body. So my notes signing off of this is where I started with politically correct Pilates and politics slash power slash control. And right there at control, we're talking contrology, and all that matters in the Pilates instructor's world, instruction to the student. And it's not a group thing. It's not a group thing. I read a quote about that. It's not a group thing. Pilates is an individual thing. And it's an individual's response to the world. The world. It's a deliberate conditioning. And in a big way, to the extent that this poem is so pure and well constructed that you don't even need to know why, as long as your ambition is to mirror it, which is most of what the Pilates culture does. What makes you distinctive in your understanding of the MMP point of view, you understand why whole body is the objective. You understand how the body is engaging itself to get to whole body, and that you are in pursuit of ideal conditioning because of the ideal nature of the reality we find ourselves in. And from within the MMP point of view, has a residual that comes out of it, or the pursuit of the conditioning pattern and the complete coordination of being, thinking, and observing is an experience. That coordination of those three elements, the complete coordination, is an experience that you strive for. You don't flip it on like a switch. You get brief glimpses of here and there. But those brief glimpses are the potent substance that is the delivering the essence of what it is by its own definition. An ideal you can feel while you can, because life can't live forever. Read between the lines, see behind the curtain, add two and two, direct your thinking. Geist